Leafs fam, hockey fam, what is up? This is the Leafs Convo. I'm Norman James. Finally an HQ winner, BT Dubs. Got it done last night. One of like 17,000 winners on that big game where pretty much everybody used their extra life to win. But that's okay. 16 cents in the HQ bank, baby. I'm on the board. Mike Augello standing by. He and I are going to talk about Lou Lamoriello going to the New York Islanders as president of hockey operations. How does Lou's presence on the island affect John Tavares and whether he'll stay with that organization? Really, John? There with the New York Islanders for the rest of your career? Come on, dude. Plus, Mark Hunter taking his stick and puck, leaving Toronto, going back to his farm in Petrolia. What is he going to do next? Mike's ready to go. I'm ready to go. I know you're ready to go. The Leafs Convo starts now. And here is the other half of the Leafs Convo, my better half, Mike Augello from Buffalo, New York. Michael, an interesting day for hockey news.
Good afternoon, Norman. The hits just keep on coming with the Maple Leafs. It's like one after the other.
Yeah, no question. So Lou Lamoriello announced president of hockey operations for the iconic New York Islanders, and then we get word that Mark Hunter and the Maple Leafs have officially parted ways. Are we crying over this? Are we rejoicing? A little bit of both, or is this just a testament to how pro sports is done these days? You have a relationship, it works or it doesn't, and then you move on and strike up a relationship with someone else.
Well, first, it had to be expected because, we knew that Brendan Shanahan made the conscious decision to move away from Lou Lamoriello after the 3 years. That was apparently the plan, at least in his mind. I've heard, rumors that Lou wanted to stay on for another year or two. Obviously, he still wants to continue working, which is the reason why he joined the Islanders as president of hockey operations. And it sounds like he's going to be basically in control of that organization with Garth Snow probably shuffling paper clips or something like that. But he didn't want to quit. But once it was decided that Shanahan wanted to move on to somebody else, it was a decision of either Dubas or Hunter. And you pretty much knew that whoever lost that job interview or that contest was probably going to be leaving the organization. So, this is Brendan Shanahan's choice. I can't really say that he's done many things wrong since he joined this club 4 years ago. And now we get to see whether Kyle Dubas, what pretends for his future and the future of the Leafs. But Mark Hunter's done a great job here. He's added a lot of great players, and I don't think it's great news that he's leaving, but it's just another chapter, and we see what will happen going forward.
Mark Hunter with the Maple Leafs, not for a long time, but a good time, and it's still quite possible the elements that he put into place or contributed in putting into place for the organization right now could pay dividends in terms of a Stanley Cup title in the years to come. So at some point, we may all be celebrating that Leafs Stanley Cup that we've been waiting so long for. Mike, you've been waiting. You've just turned 87 years old. You're doing pretty well for an elderly individual. Mike, sorry, I just lost my microphone there. I'm so excited about that joke, but it kind of fell flat.
Wait. Yeah, who's elderly and who's not here? Jeez.
I feel like I'm 100. Trust me. I'm an old athlete. I walk around like John Elway after the game. It's pretty terrible. This is the Leafs Conversation. I'm Norman James along with Mike Augello. The point I was trying to make about Mark Hunter is that he's contributed. Now he's moving on. Who knows what he's done? He's going to do next. He might just hang around Budweiser Gardens and toil with the team that he owns, the junior hockey team, the London Knights. He may want to join another NHL staff. I'm not completely convinced that Mark Hunter's ready to uproot himself or his wife and get out of Petrolia and move to Long Island unless he's commuting there a couple of times a week or a few times a month. But again, he was with the Leafs for a short time and a good time, and he's on his way out. Lou Lamoriello still wants to continue on in this game. Interesting at that age. But look, at the end of the day, it's just all part of the process. And we knew Kyle Dubas was on the fast track to becoming the leader, the de facto leader of the Maple Leafs. So I'm hoping a lot of people don't look at this whole situation and this transition as if Brendan Shanahan was clearing out the fossils and making room for the millennial, right? Because that's not exactly the way it was going down.
No, and I mean the Hunter aspect you're talking about in terms of uprooting his family. I mean that has to be taken into consideration. Now, one of the things that was interesting about the news today was that Hunter offered apparently or was open to staying with the Leafs through the draft, but had made it clear he was going to leave the organization, and they basically said, "Well, thank you, but if you're not going to stay with the organization, then we'll move on. But you have a non-compete in your contract, so you can't join another NHL team until I think mid-July after the draft and free agency." But I think it's basically a 50-50 proposition that he just goes back to the Knights. And waits for a GM possibility, and there are no GM spots open now. Paul Fenton was hired as the GM of the Minnesota Wild, I believe it was yesterday. So there are no spots open, so he could just simply bide his time running the Knights, and then next year, if a GM spot opens up, then it's a good situation for him. But there have been some indications that maybe he could go to the Islanders and follow Lou Lamoriello there. I don't know, but I think it makes more sense for him to just go back to the Knights and basically stay open for the possibility of a job elsewhere in 2019.
Considering he doesn't really want to travel too far, and you think of the NHL franchises within a close proximity of his farm, the Detroit Red Wings, maybe something opens up there, or even the Buffalo Sabres. The thing about Mark Hunter is that he will be able to take what he's done with the Maple Leafs and, of course, his legendary work with the London Knights and say, look, the proof is in the pudding. I deliver results. And if you want me, you have to abide by my terms. He is not knocking on people's doors and asking for a job because he needs the money. The guy's already a millionaire. He's accomplished. So if you're going to get Mark Hunter, it's going to be on his terms. And considering everything that's shaken down at 40 Bay, the complexity of the situation, not exactly to Mark Hunter's liking. So he's moving on, and he'll do whatever he needs to do. We wish him well. Kyle Dubas, he's in the captain's chair now. He's got some big decisions to make. Let's go back to Lou Lamoriello and what his impact might be on Long Island and the rest of the NHL. Just by association.
I think the addition of Lamoriello improves the chances of Tavares staying, but remember, this is an extremely flawed organization right now. They've not had a top-level goaltender probably since, well, I mean, DiPietro was good until he got hurt. Luongo was young when they had him, so they really haven't had a top-flight goaltender probably since Billy Smith. So, so I mean that's pretty
Wade
sad.
Dublowitz.
Yeah, Chris Osgood back in 2002. But no, I mean really, it's like, and that's sort of when you have Corey Schneider playing for New Jersey and Henrik Lundqvist, who's a future Hall of Famer, playing in the tri-state area. It's sort of glaring when you have Thomas and you have Larosov Halak that really kills your team in a competitive division like the Metropolitan. So I think that one thing that Lou will do, and as he did in Toronto, is one of the first things he did was solidify their goaltending. He realizes how important goaltending is. They have 2 first-round picks, I think 11th and 12th overall. I would not be surprised if there's a potential number 1 goaltender out there that they use one of those picks to get that goaltender. Now, I don't know who that would be.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard Philip Grubauer. I've heard Corey Crawford indicate rumors. I don't think it would take a first-round pick to get him because he's making $6 million a year. But whoever that number 1 goaltender is to be the next guy out there, I think Lou will do like he did with Corey Schneider in New Jersey and like he did with Freddie Anderson in Toronto. He will go out and get that goaltender. But that's just the first of many problems that have to be addressed with the Islanders, and he'll let's just say he'll be busy the next 6 to 12 months.
Lou has this nickname on social media, the Closer. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can draw conclusions as to whether that nickname makes a lot of sense, or depending on historically what he does to get deals done. Sure, you might want to consider him to be the closer. So going to Long Island. Is he the closer in a potential deal with John Tavares that will keep him as an Islander pretty much for the rest of his career? Is that what John Tavares and his representation had been waiting for for the sage old wise one to leave the Leafs and come to Long Island and say, listen, John, this is where you need to be? Because I know that a lot of people believe that the chances of Tavares signing with the Islanders have gone up since Lou's arrival. I refuse to believe that he's the reason why, Lou is the reason why John Tavares will choose to finish his career on Long Island. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it had much of an effect. It's what Lou can do, but the thing is there's a very short window. We're talking about, a little over a month, and he really can't make trades until after the season is complete. And there's a number of situations with that team that have to be addressed. Contracts. Guys like Anders Lee need to be re-signed. Their defense was not the greatest last year. A lot of injuries. The goaltending, as I said, and just the building situation with Brooklyn. Whether they're going to be going back to the Nassau Coliseum, which I think has something around 13,000 seats. So the financial base is not there, and the Barclays situation was a disaster. So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and that's why I think it's still more than 50-50 chance that Tavares says, okay, there are situations out there like San Jose or Vegas or Nashville or, I'll throw Toronto in there, although I've never been convinced that he's coming to Toronto, that, might be more, I'd say, beneficial to him, because if his goal is to win a Stanley Cup, I don't think it's going to happen with the Islanders for the next 3 or 4 years, even with Lou reorganizing that team.
This is The Convo. I'm Norman James. Mike Augello is my podcast partner in crime. If you're on the Leafs Convo YouTube channel, thank you for being here. I hope you subscribed. We have so much content set to come your way over the days, weeks, and months ahead. It's going to make your head spin, but it'll be worthwhile. Not overly redundant, just good Leafs conversation, man. That's what we do. Tell your friends. We're trying to hit some milestones in terms of subscribers and listening hours, because we want to build this thing into something that is sustainable and that's long-term, and it's a place for all of us to come and just talk Leafs, man. On John Tavares, he's just at such a critical point in his career, okay? And here's a guy who loved the Maple Leafs, wanted to be a part of the Maple Leafs, would have loved to have been drafted by the Maple Leafs, and years later, he could be in a position where if Kyle Dubas and the brass decide to make him a sizable competitive offer, why doesn't he just take it, Mike? Because the Leafs are now on that road towards true contentionhood. We know they need help on defense, but they'll get there. Kyle Dubas will find a way. Whether he elevates Martin Marincin and frees Martin Marincin and brings him up to the top. I'm kidding, because I know how much you love Martin Marincin. Or find somebody else. The Leafs are going to get there. It's the mighty Maple Leafs, for goodness sakes, the biggest team in hockey. You can wear that Maple Leafs crest on your chest for the rest of your career and play with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Morgan Riley and whomever else they're bringing up and be a part of the biggest team in hockey and go and win that cup. Why not do it? Go for it. If you're given the opportunity, go and do it. The Leafs aren't a bunch of also-rans. They're not a team circling the toilet bowl. This is as good as they've been since forever, and this is the chance. You could be that piece. Why not do it?
Well, taking the glass is half full approach here. If you were looking at this, say, 3, 4, 5 years ago when the team was wallowing outside of the playoffs or at the bottom of the league, the chances would be next to nothing, even though they would have tons of money to throw at them, because I think it would be looked upon as John Tavares being the savior. And I think that there was sort of that feeling with Stamkos. Remember, but they were going after Stamkos, I think, a week after they drafted Austin Matthews. So at that point, this was a team that finished 30th overall. They had good young players playing in the minors or playing in junior or playing over in Europe, but they were not, you had Babcock and he comes in and he finishes last. So there was no proof of this team making the turn in direction. Now they've made the playoffs 2 years in a row. You've got one of the best young centers in the league in Matthews. You've got really good young forwards. The team needs to improve on defense. It's more. You can make more of a case that a Tavares or a player like that would say, okay, here's an opportunity to win. It's the question now that if you add Tavares, and you're going to have to sign Matthews at the same time probably that you sign Tavares, and they have the same agent in Pat Brisson, so that might not be as difficult as you think, but it could be, paying both of them $11 million a year, which would be, more than what Kane and Taves are being paid in Chicago. You're going to probably have to, the upheaval that's going on in the Leaf management right now will probably carry forth to the upheaval on the roster, because they're probably going to have to move players out that they know that they won't be able to afford in the next couple of years. So yes, there are definite pluses when it comes to adding Tavares, and you could look at the Tavares-Matthews combo as what Pittsburgh has with Malkin and Crosby. And if you look at them, they haven't had those two. They haven't had a defense that you would say is one of the best in the league, because they had two of the best centers in the league. You might go at it that way, but that's still not the traditional way. I still think that this organization is going to go to bolster their blue line and lock up their young guys. And even though it would be great, I just don't think that the dream of John Tavares in blue and white is going to happen.
If he was given the choice and the offer was competitive, and Kyle Dubas and the staff were prepared to have to juggle some of their financial strategies to make things work, and the onus was on John Tavares, it should be a no-brainer. But I'm wondering sometimes if the league frowns upon these big free agents changing teams the way they used to. Free agency isn't what it once was. Players end up signing long-term contracts to stay with the team they were drafted by. And that's just part and parcel of today's NHL. A lot of it has to do with the salary cap. And it's free agency. Back in our days, Mike, free agency was so much more fun. But now the league would tell you that things are a lot more stabilized, and they'd rather have these big homegrown talents eventually make that decision to stay with the organization where they grew and continue on down that path. But for John Tavares, does he want to go down as one of the great players, potential Hall of Famers, who's never really had a chance to win a Stanley Cup because he stayed with an organization that just couldn't get its shit together? That certainly remains to be seen. It would be a lot of, free agency, I don't care what people say about wanting to retain William Nylander and not, never wanting to break the band up and being contractually astute and smart. I don't care how much you love that stuff. If John Tavares is signed by the Maple Leafs on July 1st, you're going bananas. You're loving it because it's the theater, it's the excitement. We have 2 minutes, Mike. What do you want to add?
Well, you have to remember that the Leafs have Brandon Pridham, who is a wizard when it comes to the salary cap. And I've been sort of throwing this idea out there that, the last couple of years they've had the LTIR contract of Nathan Horton and Lupul. And if they ever want to go out there and do a deal like a Tavares, it's now accepted basically, with Arizona trading for Dave Bolin, with Mark Savard's deal, with Pavel Datsuk, got players who are on LTIR being traded as commodities, so teams could either fill the cap space or open up more cap space. If they wanted to trade for or sign a John Tavares or trade for somebody who's a big money contract, all they have to do really is to trade for somebody who's on long-term injury. It's just money out of the pocket of MLS&E, and that would be a way to open up more than whatever the cap is to afford a bigger contract. So that's the one thing. Kyle Dubas and this organization will take all the opportunities to use all the assets and all the positives of this organization to make the team better. So I don't think there's any limitation of what they'll do, and that's one of many possibilities.
We have no clue how it's all going to shake out. The only thing we can do is talk about it, wait and see, and when something happens, we collab for a convo. Michael, have yourself a wonderful day.
Thanks, Norman.
Have you seen our new logo yet? It's terrific. It has an old school retro vibe to it. Now, if we only knew who sent it to us. A big thanks to Anonymous from Toronto, who gifted the Leafs Convo with its newest branding representation. Whoever you are, Anonymous, we're grateful. See the logo anytime on our YouTube channel. Anonymous knows how to get it done. Hey, Anonymous, keep sending me those goods, bad boy. The Leafs Convo at gmail.com. do it right now. That's going to do it for the Leafs Convo podcast. If you're on the YouTube channel, thank you very much for being here. Make sure to subscribe to the page. Keep coming back. Tell your friends in the comments section below each podcast. Leave your takes, leave your rants, rip us, lot us. The key is keep coming back. Leafs news continues to evolve the same way this franchise evolves. It's going places. Is John Tavares going to reach free agency, test the market, perhaps field an offer from the Maple Leafs? Maybe Kyle Dubas doesn't even care about John Tavares, and his whole mindset is to elevate those Cats at Ricoh Coliseum, vying for a Calder Cup right now, and move them on to join the Cats with the Maple Leafs, who are going to be vying for Stanley Cups in these seasons to come. We shall see. Let's talk about it. The Leafs Convo YouTube page open for business right now. For Mike Augello, I'm Norman James. We will talk soon. Peace.